Dude, I am a content monster. This is my third contenting on my drive home. I've just turned one drive home into 3 contents. Somebody flashed their lights at me. What does that mean? Policia? I guess what I'm saying is I think I've developed a relatively reliable way of knowing or understanding everything in a natural way. I have a handful of exercises. It's not really any of the exercises, but I use, a handful of them. And it radically resets the way that you think about space, time, exercise, objects, yourself, your mind. Like the difference between your mind and your body will entirely vanish. It's really easy to conform your thinking to these principles when you sort of immerse yourself in these principles. So it's the breathing underwater through a hose, especially the nose, applies a pressure to your metabolism that is supremely corrective. Beyond description, especially if you treat it like a practice, like if you go under and breathing through a long hose through the nose, allow the water pressure to squeeze and relax your breath so that you exhale, and then you're inhaling under the pressure of the water. And so learn how to move in that space, how to exist in that space. The water pressure will impart its nature onto your breath if you breathe in it. Most people that go underwater They either don't breathe or they do a scuba tank, right? And a scuba tank I'm only driving like 2 miles an hour, if that, in traffic. Where was I? Oh yeah, the water like imparts its nature onto your breath, and so the more you relax into that, the deeper that it imparts your nature. So you can start to feel and breathe like water, you can think like water, you can exist and move like water, you can feel like water, you can conform your everything to water. You know, that would, I don't know if you, I can't imagine not knowing that or not feeling that, but if you were to do that, it would probably precipitate some sort of like enlightenment experience or something. That'd be nice, right? I remember having those. Waking up to awareness or something like that. The water is awareness as well. So when you're in it, you're fully focused, and you understand the nature of focus, which is to be in your water. And so you can do this thing that you do with a long hose, snorkel through the nose. You can do it through your own nose, because your breath is going into the water. And so when you breathe underwater through a hose, you learn to pull that air into the water against the direction the air wants to go, like mechanically, but that's going on, you know, chemically, as you pull the oxygen into the body, or pull the oxygen off of the hemoglobin, maybe. Right? So you start to feel eventually that your breath is like you're pulling the air off of your blood. You're pulling the air out of your blood. And that shift is basically the beginning or the foundation of fitness. Like, this isn't your blood. This breathing out is not your breathing. I mean, this tidal crap is not your breathing. Your breath is the draw. Like, what are you doing when you breathe? You're pulling the oxygen off of the blood. And the blood naturally attracts oxygen, right? So when the blood is exposed to the lungs, it naturally sucks up oxygen. And so your effort of breathing is to pull that oxygen out of the blood and to desaturate the blood. That's actual breathing. And so most people can only do that with crazy exercise like VO2 max or whatever, but you can just sit and stop breathing as much, and you'll start to desaturate, and that's you pulling the oxygen out of the blood. And you can start to feel that and observe that and desaturate down to whatever, 70, 30%. You can monitor this with an SpO2 monitor, like one of these. With no batteries. It's weird. But yeah, you can monitor that and just breathe in such a way that you start to desaturate. When you're desaturating, you know you're pulling that oxygen off the blood. You know you're breathing. Desaturating your blood is the breath. And so that breathing in and out, the real breath, if you were going to take a real breath, and this is why people need to exercise or meditate every day with intensity, is because you're desaturating your blood. That's what exercise is doing. So you can do that through like having your muscles go crazy, or just you can do it by chilling out. And not doing, basically, right? Like by not doing, which is not breathing, your blood will start to desaturate, and that desaturation is your actual breath. That's you pulling the oxygen off the hemoglobin, and you can actually get better at that. You can get better at desaturating your blood, basically strength training. You're pumping, you're working, and people are doing this unconsciously. The people that do this correctly are talented at it, but the strength training, athleticism, power generation, the main skill is desaturating the blood, because that's the limit of your energetic reserves. That's your power. The degree to which you can desaturate your blood oxygen is the amount of power that you have available to you. So you can unlock that power just by not breathing as much, which is what people call pranayama, I assume, right? Breath work. I've never studied it. But if I were to do breath work, this is what I would do. And so you're learning to discharge the energy in the blood to access it. And so but just to access it, you would you either have to do a breath control that's very difficult, or do an exertion that's very difficult. So you'd have to either do a non-doing that's very difficult, or a very difficult exertion. They're about equivalent, right? Go run 5-minute miles. There's non-doing activities with the breath, of where you're just not breathing and you're desaturating, and you're like, staying desaturated between 25 and 35%. That's the same breath exertion as running or sprinting at full speed, in terms of the actual the actual oxygen demand of your body's like pulling the oxygen off the blood. Right? If you pull all the oxygen out of your blood when you're running, you go into your anaerobic, right? So people are kind of afraid to induce these breath control states in themselves, of like, oh, is it healthy to stay at 50% SpO2 or whatever, just through withholding and doing the breath control? And it's like, yeah, you're just doing blood work, which is breath work. That's the breath. That's the hard part of the breath, is when you're pulling the oxygen off the hemoglobin. Because it just unconsciously wants oxygen. It just fills up when exposed to oxygen. But you have the ability to pull it in the rest of the way. And that's the breath. And once you get more comfortable discharging that's you can sprint, run, do things that require power. Doing anything that, if you like, say that you do 100 of anything and it starts to make you breathe heavily, right? Like if you do 1,000,000 punches, or if you run, or you do 1,000,000 jumps, and you do anything or like to where it makes you start to breathe heavily, then if you master the breath, you can do that activity more And then that's the level that people are working on, where it's just like you just have it or you don't. Talent. Like people have been mesmerized to not look at the obviousness of this, right? It's like a complete loss of the animal nature. The natural human was supposed to be to understand its location in space and time. Which today we would call a genius. Right? Like if somebody actually knows the answer to all of the theories, you would go, oh, they're a genius. Well, anybody can know that. Anybody can know that shit. And that's the default state. That's like the animal human. People are so far fallen, they're like fallen lower than that. Oh yeah, so you can breathe like that. And then you can do that while you're breathing through the hose. And then you can study inertia itself with a gyroscope, right? Like a spinning object, like a stick, or an actual gyroscope.